Hello, I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. And with me, I have a very, very interesting guest. It's definitely not a stranger to us. When I come back, you'll meet my guest after these words from our sponsors. And the Windward Islands Bank, in three locations: Phillipsburg, Cul-de-sac, and in Simpson Bay. For all your banking needs, you need a loan, it's a Windward Islands Bank. Windward Islands Bank, Simpson Bay, Cul-de-sac, and also in Phillipsburg. And my guest of the program is, I forgot, GBE. GBE. GB has been service around for some 6 decades. GEBE, Local Water and Electricity Company. That's GEBE. And I'm Earl Gibbs here with you, and my guest is a very, very dynamic lady, Miss Claire Elshot. She's a former president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union, and she's still president of the Chamber of Commerce of Labor Unions here in St. Martin. Chamber of Labor Unions here in St. Martin. Welcome to the program. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you once more for having me, Oral. And, good evening to your listeners and viewers.
Well, it's good to have you here because there's so many things happening, and I've had you many times in the program. How's things going on that you're no longer the Teachers Union?
Well, I'm no longer the president of the Teachers Union, but I'm still holding a position as immediate past president and advisor in the Windward Islands Teachers Union. And it is just as hectic, because you attend meetings, you give your advice, and you prepare certain, things for discussion. But that is one part of the aspect. But being the president of the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Unions is like you are now over the umbrella organization of a number of unions that represent workers, not only civil servants, not only teachers, but also workers in the private sector. And for me, that is also very important because after being, a decade long serving as president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union,
Right.
It is a rotating chair as president of the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Unions. So we have seen a number of persons held the presidency in the past, and this is the second time around for me. But it is a learning experience. It's still, the younger unions and the ones that are young in presidency, they look up to you for advice and for support. So it is a very important role still that I am playing within the trade union organization.
Well, is it safe to say that you're the longest serving lady in unionism here in St. Martin right now?
Historically, I believe it's safe to say that.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, because I have more than 25 years that I've held the presidency, actually 27 and a half years that I was president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union. So 25 years is a decade already.
Right.
But within that 25 years, I've seen a lot of developments, a lot of changes, based to your legal position is teacher, but all the different conditions.
Yeah.
There have been improvements, yes, and somewhere along the line we have lost a number of different things, but still you can see that you have been able to structurally put something in place that can secure the future of the generations within the teaching profession.
We have seen lately, not only in St. Martin, but worldwide, labor unions under enormous pressure. A lot of people believe that they're not as powerful as they used to be anymore. Do you think that's accurate?
Well, they are under a lot of pressure because no labor unions like to see, the package, the social package of the workers deteriorating. But basically, I don't really subscribe to people saying they're not as powerful. You see, it's a transformation. when trade unionism started in the 70s, the way of negotiations, the social dialogue, etc., they were not in place in that form or fashion, so it was a lot more confrontation. And basically, to even after the Second World War, that is how the ILO, the International Labour Organization, came into birth, to avoid certain confrontations that can lead to, non-desirable or stalemates or things that would not be progressive in your economy. So the way we negotiate, collective bargaining is now high on the agenda of the unions, and the way that negotiations take place, the social dialogue, what is expected from the unions versus what the old traditional way. One to two, the old traditional way was, you hit up a strike, you take the road, you protest. Not that these tools have been ruled out, but those are like the last resorts. But you also have within the whole package, you have mediation, and this is where we have a government mediator that should have an independent role and have basically a very, very autonomous, independent, but also a very powerful role.
How's that now? Because I remember a few years back, some of the unions were not happy with the mediator. Is that still the case, or things have improved?
Well, from what when I was president of the teachers union, we never used the office of the mediator, because the office of the mediator is more designed for the private sector. As public sector, you have another platform where you would go with your any change in the legal position or any changes that would be coming in the back of the package of the workers. That platform would be the GOA, which nowadays we call it CCSU. And there you can see, for example, that within the CCSU, the new structure, it is not only advisory body, but we also have a consensus role inside of that body, that certain things you have to reach a consensus for it to be able to fly, and other things you can give advice. So you're advisory and a consensus. Before times, the GOA was just an advisory body. The government could take the advice, or they can do without taking advice. But with certain things, that is it. Now, the private sector, you would still hear people speaking, for example, that they're not, or trade unionists, that they're not happy with the mediation and the mediator's office. But you still have, in that case, the courts too. The higher level. When you seek mediation and you're not happy, you can always, as worker, go to the courts. And the courts, then the judge would give judgments, which a number of companies was taken by trade unions like the WIFL to courts, and on labor issues, they won all their cases. What we are having is the non-compliance of the people, of the businesses, with the court verdict.
Right.
And that is what I consider a grave violation, because you're not only violating the court verdict, the national laws, because they are laws, your national laws, but you also, the rights of the workers are being violated. And that is the sad part.
That seems to be very prevalent on the island now.
Very prevalent on the island. And, it's getting worse and worse, because in some cases, we have seen workers went to courts more than once on the same issue, and they have gotten a verdict from the courts more than once. So then
But the verdicts are not enforced.
It's not enforced. And there is where we have been championing in Parliament, for example, as a union, as a chamber, that there should be some amendments. When you hear the cry of the workers, then there should be some amendments. They are talking about flexibility, but there should be some flexibility and amendments to help protect the workers. Because we find that workers on the work floor, the minute they speak to the employer about the permanent, for example, contract, they are terminated. While we have laws, after 3 contracts in the flexibilization, you're permanent.
But that's 3 consecutive.
Yes, 3 consecutive. Then how is it possible that you have people working for 12 years and years on contracts? So it is...
But aren't they not using the loopholes in the law to get around that?
And that's why, basically, as a president of the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Unions, we are now doing homework as to looking at the laws and some of those loopholes to be able to carry back. It's taken more time than we anticipated, but to be able to send back to Parliament to say, hey, here is where the shoe is tight. Here is where you need a flexibilization to be able to protect the workers. Because all the time when you hear the word flexibilization, it is as if the interpretation of the word flexibilization is to flexibilize so that they can abuse a little more of the workers. But we as unions are now standing for flexibilization of the labor laws, certain labor laws, to protect the workers.
So do you believe there needs to be a real comprehensive review of the labor laws?
Definitely. That is my belief, a real comprehensive review, because it is sad that decent work and work possibilities for the people, the young people of this country, is not being enforced and secured where they can have a permanent job. If you don't have a permanent job, it interrupts your whole social well-being. Because if you don't have a permanent job, when would you be able to get a mortgage to be able to attain a house, to put a house together? Even if it is a social housing, you need to have a permanent job to be able to even rent a house.
But, Elshot, the government of St. Martin is also guilty here, because the government of St. Martin hire people on contracts through third parties. How do you feel about that?
They are the culprits big time, because if the government would lead by example, then basically everybody as employer would follow. But let's get it clear that I'm not saying that I am totally against contracts. You give contracts for seasonal work. But when I look at St. Martin and the development that we have been going through economically, I am saying, but wait, which part of St. Martin has a low and a high season that you have seasonal work is required? Yes, we do have a little dip, a little lower, but the season to be is 12 months. And then it is impossible for work that is on a continual basis for that to be contracted over and over to workers. Then you set them out for a period just to break the cycle, and then bring them back in to do the same work. In the meantime, when they are out, you take somebody else to do that same work. That should not be permitted, because if it is seasonal work, that means you only need a person for 3 months, and after that, that vacancy is no longer available until the next season. To me, that's the way it should be. But if we have a government that can permit people to play with a livelihood, whenever there is election, everybody knows what is the problem with the short-term contract, the abuse of the short-term contract. How long more do we have to talk about this here in Phillipsburg? Because this is something that it should have been a question of the past. It is not only for the labor unions to talk about, but this is something where we need to get together, tripartite wise, the government, the employers, and the labor unions, and come up with something that structurally can benefit everyone.
Now, I know we've been speaking about this for a very, very long time.
Yes.
Do you think that the Parliament of St. Martin is more sympathetic towards the business community? Why? Because nothing really has changed in many, many years now.
Well, I wouldn't say they are sympathetic to the business community, but the way things are run here, especially during the campaign time, and I don't have a way to say it differently. Seemingly, afterwards you hear things come out and then you realize that the campaigns of these different parties are being funded potentially by the business. They are donors to this. But then, even if you are donors, the whole social economic well-being of St. Martin and its people should be on the forefront of any political agenda. Because when you don't have a vision for where you want your young people to be like 20 years after, that is when the problem starts.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me go to a break, and then when I come back, so you can have some water and drink. In case you've just joined us, you watching our Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is the president of the Windward Islands Chamber of Labor Unions, and we're here to speak with her on Oral Gibbs Live. And I'm looking at my time, so I guess she's back, and then we'll take a break a little later. Ready to go back?
Yeah.
All right, good. So I'll tell you what, let's just still go to that break. When I come back, I will have that. All right, so we're going to do that. Let's make this thing go right back. We'll stay with us.
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself. Promises, we can make it if we work together. That's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation, yes we can. The more difficult it is to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it. Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Oh, never give up. Oh, never give up. We can make it. Never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it. The power to serve, standing for community. OGB, got the power to serve, the power to serve. We got the energy. OGB.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time.
My guest on the program this evening is president of the Windward Islands Chamber of Labor Unions, Mrs. Elshot, and we're here to speak with her. And Mrs. Elshot, it's so good to have you in the program, because you brought up a lot of issues that are very, very, very important. And I said to you earlier, if you think that Parliament was sympathetic to the business community. And the reason I say that is because I've been around a long time too. And it seems like nothing is changing. There's no real change on the island.
Well, you are so right with that, Oral. The things that are changing in the economy, you are seeing a lot of, things boostering up. You're seeing a lot of movement. But again, if your economy do not cater to your people, the well-being, the social well-being of your people, then something is wrong. I can remember a couple of years ago when we had a minister from the Netherlands, Antilles days, came here to St. Martin, and that was when the minimum wage were being raised, and he said, when you see the booming economy in St. Martin and the workers are not getting their fair share of the pie, then something is wrong. And that always stick with me. As I am wondering sometimes if the political arena, the parliament, the council of ministers, if they are only into their world, a little cube, their office, if they do not see what is going on the outer side, and if they do not feel the hurt of their people. For example, you don't have to be a political analyst or a teacher or psychologist or anybody to see the hurt of the people, the hurt of the elderly, the hurt of the young people. You cannot continue to drive and to, to develop a country's economy without including the people, the inclusion of your people. Because the workers are not people that row in the morning on a rowboat and row out in the evening. They are part of your economy. They pay rent, they pay GB, they pay, their children, they buy food, etc. So they need to be in a place where they can make their money, decent work. They need to have a work environment that would be conducive to their growth socially, and that can also provide for their children. So, that is, for me, the logical path. And in my vision, as the president of the Chamber of Labor Unions, I would love to see this for my island, because St. Martin belongs to me. I sometimes am mistakenly taken for other nationalities, but I am from here. I would love to see any young person that starts in a work environment, that they can make the career in that environment, that they can be able to independently provide for themselves. A car for a worker is not everything. It comes with a whole package, you understand? And this is why I am saying we have to look at things differently. Now we are in the month of April. May, the 1st of May, have been determined internationally as Labor Day. What do we want precisely out of a Labor Day celebration? Here in St. Martin is being overshadowed, of course, because this time it's fallen on a Sunday. It's being overshadowed by Carnival. But we have to reflect on Labor Day, where we want to carry the workers and their families within the structure.
But, having said that, you have been in education all your life. You was a teacher, and you understand better than all of us the issues that are confronting young people on this island today. And I understand that the illiteracy rate is on the rise on St. Martin. This is very alarming.
It is alarming, but
again, is that correct? Because I'm hearing it from some experts that with numbers I'm afraid to repeat.
But because we are a community that have been influenced by the influx of migrants
Okay.
from all over the region. You would see the difference, for example, when the children come into the system very young. They master the English and sometimes even the Dutch, and some of them are very brilliant within. But when you import labor, certain aspects of labor, you don't know the background, because some of these people, they come into your system illiterate already.
Yeah.
So we don't cater enough for adult education. I know, for example, while living in Curacao, I would see that they would have all those different programs to eradicate illiteracy under working people,
But,
you know?
don't you think we should not be importing illiterate people to work on the island? Because Donald Trump made a statement when he was president, and a lot of people got angry with him. But if you want your country to remain on a certain level, you can't just open the doors for everyone. Now, I have nothing against immigrants, but if we're going to be bringing in people to work on this island that are illiterate, I think it's just going to drag us down even more.
Well, what happened is St. Martin has its uniqueness. Sometimes we don't specifically import certain types of people.
Well, I use that term just
yes, they
just
come here,
free.
and a lot of people underestimate the rate of what we need when it comes to skilled labor. Some of these people were able to give out themselves as skilled laborers, while actually,
it's not true.
when you see the when you see the level of work, you realize it's cobblers.
Right.
But they make use of the opportunity and the fact that you have lack of that in your country. Now, the fact that we already went as a St. Martin to provide a Nipa, for example,
right.
we have to continue to look at certain profiles of working class people that we would need.
I need you to explain Nipa before you continue so my audience can know what you're speaking about.
Okay,
Yeah.
Nipa is a secondary vocational type of education. That means you prepare the students for the world of work. So they have certain programs, and I believe if you invite one of them to the program, they will give you more.
We've had them on the program one time.
Explanation of
Right.
their programs, because they are not only hospitality for the hospitality and cooks, etc., but they go automotive also. They have plumbers, and these are some of the things that we lack here in St. Martin. The fact that we lack people with skills for plumbing, for example, masonry, etc. But when you get this course and you can take your youngsters from the school benches and continue to develop them, then that is a different course of workers that you're busy providing to the labor market. And any case, there are still certain jobs that you would find that now the youngsters are doing. When I was young, for example, cleaning the yard, certain yard cleaning was destined for one called the Haitian man. He would do that. Cleaning the road, working on the garbage trucks. I know when I was a young girl, a lot of men that came from Anguilla used to be on the garbage trucks.
It was all
etc.
local people, Samran people, basically, in the beginning.
Yes, but right now, that has developed into a different, type of streaming for the persons that would do those jobs. In any case, the illiteracy, it also has two aspects, because a person is not well versed in English means that they're totally illiterate. And sometimes I believe that is what they look at, because the person cannot communicate, don't have communication skills in English. But we are not providing that also, because, for example, if you go to Holland and you cannot speak Dutch, you have to go, no matter how old you are, you're a grandfather or grandmother, a young person, you have to go to certain classes. On the French side, they have it mandatory. You have to go to certain classes to be able to learn the French. But we don't have that here either like that. And the possibilities, some people are willing, but the possibilities that are limited based on the programs are that they are very expensive. That is what also is a hindrance to a lot of people, because algemene ontwikkeling, as they would say in Dutch, which is a general knowledge, a lot of people would go to those type of courses when they are illiterate to bring themselves up to that level. They would get in that course, they would get the package of how to read, except because some people go through elementary school and surprisingly they cannot read. And day by day, the specialized persons like remedial teachers have been removed out of the school system. So if you have a youngster that, for whatever reason, whether it's dyslexia or whatever, cannot read, you can imagine that's the way it's going to grow up. But some people, when they get, big, etc., when they get more mature, then they want to learn, and that's how the illiteracy rate is high.
But aren't you concerned, because as a labor union leader for decades, or 3 decades, if it continue on this path, maybe the unions will cease to exist because you'll have a very poorly educated labor force who won't really understand the significance of trade unions?
Well, basically, I would say, because on a daily basis, I find myself helping people that are, computer illiterate, and while helping them, you would realize that these are illiterate also, but they can speak to you and explain you, and you would then, help them.
They're functional illiterate.
Yes, they function on a different level, but it is sad to see how things are developing, because at a given moment, I don't know if it is because I was a brilliant student all the time, throughout my career, but you cannot help everybody. Some people have to try to help themselves, but the quicker, and you see it under the younger generation, they'll quicker look at the TV, they'll quicker look at, they'll be on their, what you call it? On the phone and things like that. But when it comes to literacy, they are illiterate. You understand? They can't understand, read, and understand what they are reading. And those are certain things that, as a trade union, I don't necessarily know how we could solve that problem right now, but I don't believe it would impact, because when it comes to people and their rights, people want their monies as illiterate as they is. They want their money, they pay their fair pay, and they want their benefits. They know their rights.
I had Dr. Luke Mercelina here last week on the program, and he's leader of the Unified Resilience St. Martin movement, and he mentioned his concern about the rising illiterate rate on St. Martin and other problems within the workforce. So that in itself, I was surprised that he brought it up as the leader of a political party. And I must agree with him, because if we continue down this path, it's not going to be good for us.
It's not going to be. And basically, you have to strike a balance within your development, but it is not something that you can, now that you know it, that you cannot remediate. You can remediate it, but it's the willingness, and you have to put monies in programs. The same like during the hurricane or after the hurricane, you see there were programs for adults at the same Nipa school where they had different programs running. The people were being paid to attend those classes. We need something like that, a continuation. But if you don't have anybody in leadership that are, that are out there looking and seeing how they can coordinate these programs, how they can get the funding for these programs, then that is how we stay behind. Because during the pandemic, or not the pandemic, after the hurricane, these programs were provided. So basically, and you had a big interest of people that were attending these programs, and they stopped abruptly. This is a continuation that is needed, because when we also in education would say education is a lifelong learning process. So if you stop something abrupt and leave people hanging halfway, it is not going to carry them much further. But this can be helped by looking at development programs, especially social development programs, because that rights to that social development is a human right. So basically, it is Dr. Messalina brought that forward, but this is a known factor by a number of others, but they just play the game of the ostrich and put their head in the sand and bury and hope it go away. But as a workers' organization, we are open and receptive, because you know that when the WIFO has the CSEF, which is the Institute for Social and Educational Development of the Workers, and they have been involved in retraining other workers on the workforce, and accrediting them especially in the hospitality sector. So it's not that as unions we don't do, but we can do a lot more with good planning, good timing, and also good funding.
Yeah, because I know you represent a lot of people, and sometimes their children are stuck with this problem.
Yeah. And that is basically where when I came back to St. Martin in 1988, for me it was a strange phenomenon to see the amount of children that were not in school. You understand?
At that time?
Yes. And that is how you see all the other schools that they start to call illegal schools mushroomed. But basically, I was able to also have one of those schools, the ACE Foundation, All Children's Education Foundation, because I believe in education. And not only just education. Education is a lifelong learning process. Every day you learn. You understand? And I just subscribe to that. But coming back before the program close, I would like to...
We still have some time.
I would like to dwell a little on the Labor Day. For us here in St. Martin, we have seen that since 2019, we have not had any celebration. So this year, I'm hoping with the cooperation of the Ministry of ASA and the Minister Omar Otley, to again have the recognition of some categories like the most historic, the most impact, and the spirit of labor, which would be then awarded to a person who behind the scenes have been working tirelessly to enhance trade unionism. It is not a fact that we feel that we are weak, but it is a fact that you have to keep. It's a rolling ball, and just like how everything goes through a phase, the trade unions also go through a metabolic phase. They have certain things that has to be done differently now, because the pandemic, for example, taught us a lesson, and you have to take the strengths and the weaknesses of certain development and build on that. So we have already identified a person for being the most historic, a person for being the most impact, and a person for the spirit of labor. And then since we did not have a celebration for the last 2 years, we also have other special awards for people that have given contributions within their individual unions and to the overall improvement of the workers' the whole workers' development. So that will take place since May the 1st is on a Sunday. The law would say that, the real celebration would be then on the 2nd. So Monday, the 2nd of April,
Of May.
The 2nd of May would then be that official part. The most historic would be going to Miss Brunella Illich. Brunella Illich has been on the helm of the nurses, the Windward Island Healthcare Union Association. And she has been very, 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 I would say historically, that is something to admire. How the Windward Island Healthcare Union evolved out of the CBV. That used to be the union headquarters used to be in Curacao. And one time when they had their issues here and had to wait on a delayed ALM flight, they decided, no, we're going to take our own destiny in our hands, and they formed their own union. Mr. Julian Lynch became the first president at that time, but since Sister Brunella take over, she historically is following in my footsteps because she has now been the longest serving president at the Windward Island Healthcare Union. But she's not only the president, she is a very dynamic person and also training the future generation of nurses, something that we really need. So the fact that we can train them here in St. Martin, and she's very instrumental in that, and we get good quality. Historically, she gets the historic award. The impact is going to Mr. Robert Rollins. He is the treasurer of the Windward Islands, the Windward Islands Teachers Union. Mr. Rollins have impacted the lives of several other unions, especially when they were in a little financial situation. He has also impacted and make sure that all the previous Labor Day events went smoothly by advancing, and by him, even if it's reimbursed after, but by his actions alone have created a great impact on other unions. So it was thought it's best, you give him that award and honor. And then we have the Spirit of Labor is Miss Gomes, Christine Gomes. Christine Gomes is the secretary at the WICSU PSU office, but being the secretary, there's never a day that behind the scenes, if you reach and you ask Christine to do you a favor, she never frets, she's always cooperative. So those are the three main persons, and then we have other special awards that once, we get rolling, we would make them known via the media, the persons.
The unions are so important sometimes, and I get the impression that there's always this friction between labor unions and government, and let's go back a long time. Is that still the same, or is it different now than, say, the 80s, the 90s?
Well, the friction comes because you as a union would know what you feel best for your members. Between the 80s, there were a lot of frictions because we were being subjected, especially in the public sector, to structural adjustment programs. When the government bad spends, or when the government does not have their financial house in order, it's we the workers that are suffering.
That sounds familiar today. That sounds like today.
Yes, and that is why we have these amount of frictions, because when now for you to get any liquidity support and they say cut, we as unions would say no, you cannot cut. All cuts have to be offered at the table. Now, even though as unions we give advice, the government still continues to do what they want to do. Look, for example, look what they did with the vacation allowance. Now, I can tell you 10 reasons why a vacation allowance is so important for all workers. This is something that should be allowed to all workers. Why? In the civil service, it is a law. It is a law that it should be paid the second half of June. By the second half of June. Okay? You know that the hurricane season starts the 1st of June.
Right.
All house insurance policies, they lapse in June. So that extra budgetary vacation pay that they call vacation pay is the extra budgetary monies that persons use to secure what they have built up, like a house or home or whatever, whether they have to put extra shutters, extra, and pay their policy for their insurance. You understand? And then who don't have that have to help pay, for example, school fees to get the children and grandchildren ready for school. The school fees that needs to be paid, the books, the new uniforms, etc. This is something that in our culture of St. Martin, and no government can tell me that they don't know this. It is not a vacation allowance. And even though if some part of your staff take the money to go on a vacation, it is well deserved, because when you don't get that relaxation of your brains, you want to see mental health problems that we are busy creating in our society. Nobody look at the needs. So at a given moment, you need to have that balance within the people and within the sphere. So it is not a luxury for workers to get their vacation allowance. In St. Martin, especially geographically how we are located, from the time the 1st of June roll around and the announcement is that we have what you call the hurricane season that would be very active or whatever, people's mental stage go into a different mode. So vacation allowance would allow them to have that extra budgetary to be able to meet the needs and restocking, things like that. Lord, how much more must we beg to explain our need for having a vacation allowance? So we are now in 2022. There was a law that was passed. That law needs to be annulled, especially if we have our Prime Minister telling us that the finances of this country is good.
It's good?
Well, it came out in the media, unless they print something different. Yes, it's good. It's picking up.
Are you aware that we have a national debt of 1.4 plus billion guilders right now and climbing?
Well, that is a national debt, but they have a workers' debt of a vacation allowance from 2020, 2021. And since we are in 2022, I believe the workers are entitled to 2021, 2022 in June.
I agree with you. I think they should get it.
In June, give our workers their vacation allowance, at least start with the one for 2021, 2022. Because if you don't do that, and a person end up being uninsured, and God forbid anything happens,
falls right back in government too.
Yeah. We cannot continue to go into this vicious circle. Let the people be able to provide for themselves what they have to do, because when this happens, then you have to go to a national recovery plan to help people now fix their roofs, their windows, and this. No, because the insurance the insurance lap. It's not conducive to a good development of your people. So therefore, we feel that the constant bickering and backering with government, because they want to put their hands into people's pocket. As unions, you have to sometimes do so to the government, take your hand out of my pocket. Continue to, reform and make sure you can live within your means, government. You have a budget to take care of. I know government have to take care of everybody, but still, people can take care of themselves when you provide them their means, what is actually due to them. You cannot continue to take away what's due to me and my workers and my members to be able to fix your house and put it in order. Then you don't need, and still you can't get it in order, then you don't need my vacation allowance. So this is one of the aspects. The next aspect is the cost of living. How long more must unions continue to tell the government? The last time we had a cost of living adjustment was 2012 or 2016 is when you did the minimum wage.
And so who's responsible to ensure that that happens annually?
Well, when the unions stand up now and really put a protest, then the unions are this, the unions are that, but how much longer must we continue around a table to talk and to explain that actually a cost of living adjustment is a necessity on a yearly basis to make sure that the purchasing power of the workers do not deteriorate? You have gasoline went up 5 times for this year. And then you want to tell me that it is the war in Ukraine and Russia that carrying it up. Yeah. But at a given moment, the war in Ukraine and Russia should carry up the salaries too. Should make sure that the salaries can have purchasing power to do what they have to do.
Right. It's quite, in a way, sometimes it's so complicated because those who feel that all these adjustments in wages just carry up the prices eventually and make it even more expensive for workers when they have to adjust the salaries up.
But without these adjustments, the prices went up.
That's true.
So what are we talking about? Without having adjustments in the wages, you see a constant rise in the supermarket with food. Have you seen the price of eggs of late?
Oh, it's scary.
You understand? So therefore, the prices of for example, fruits and vegetables. Today you go and you find a batch of strawberries and it is one price. A batch of grapes is one price. And by the time you go next week, you're wondering, wait, where did they grow these?
Yeah.
Because, and then by next week, half of the batch, when you buy a batch, half of it is to throw away because they spoil. And basically, we had a program as unions together and the Consumer Coalition. We had a program where it was a pilot program, affordable fruits and vegetables.
It's a very good program.
6 months. But you know that to get sponsors to sponsor that, even the government.
They wouldn't, is it because you all were bringing in fruits and vegetables and selling them cheaper than the supermarkets, right?
Well, basically, we were not a business.
Right.
To start with. We were pooling the resources of our workers and the people, the consumers, and to prove the point that, for example, people would come back and tell you the avocados were so good. When you cut an avocado, certain places from a supermarket, by the time you open it, it brown inside, and if you get one good slice out of it, the rest you have to throw. The bananas, the mangoes, when they leave them, basically ripe, the taste and everything, the quality. So it is to prove that it can happen. But why then must we continue to punish the people, while a lot of people cannot afford what is being put out there, sweet potatoes, the prices and things like that. Before times, yam and tanya was probably the cheapest thing you could have gotten to boil along with your fish.
Not anymore.
You can't.
Yeah.
So then you end up, the way how people eat today is totally different than our forefathers, because the ground provision, they gone sky high due,
Yeah.
due to certain circumstances. And I'm telling you, the whole package of workers and the cooperative factor, corporatism, and that can carry you a whole long way. But basically, here in St. Martin, the competition and the concurrence, with the business. So we had a lot of people coming from all over, sometimes even from the French side, to be able to get these produce.
Well, I really want to thank you. You're doing a remarkable job as president of the Windward Islands Chamber of Labor Unions, and we hope we can have you back again sometime soon. You have 40 seconds, all yours in closing.
Well, I would like to say it has been a really, really rough time during the pandemic, of course, but we are here as unions to continue to serve and protect the interests of the workers in St. Martin. It's the workers have to realize, do not be intimidated. They can always come to the office at the Weifel building, and they can seek their legal rights as workers' rights, and they will always be assisted. The best thing is be wise, unionize, don't wait until the problem comes. Become a member of the union. The fees are very, very cheap. Teachers is 20 guilders a month, and the others, I believe, is like 25 guilders. So basically, I would like to also say to the workers, be safe, enjoy your carnival, but also reflect on your Labor Day and where you would want to be within the workforce in St. Martin.
Well, again,
Happy Labour's Day to all.
thank you. And again, I want to thank you for coming in and wish you much success. All right?
Yeah,
All right. And that's it for now. See you next time right here on All Kids Live. Till then, bye.